Here you have the general structure of an amino acid, and you need to be able to identify the different parts. Based off of the name, we should have an amino group. That means there's an amine present. Here we have our amine. It is a primary amine, which is why we can refer to it as an amino group. Amino acids, we need to have an acid. Our organic acids are our carboxylic acids. In addition, there's going to be this side group. We generically just call it an R group because it is a carbon-based group. And this is going to be the side chain that gives us the identity of our amino acids. In mammals, and more specifically humans, there are 20 different side chains to make 20 different amino acids. Research has found from singular or single-celled organisms up to multicellular organisms, there's a couple hundred different amino acids out there. However, we can only utilize 20, and most mammals are in the same situation. Mammals can synthesize within their body 10 of the 20 amino acids, which means there are 10 essential amino acids that you must consume within your diet. That is why it's really important that you have a varied diet, because not every food source has all 20 amino acids. When you have a variety of fruits, vegetables, meat, cheeses, that is where you're getting your exposure to the other 10 essential amino acids. We also have this hydrogen that is going to be bonded to this carbon in the middle. This carbon in the middle is referred to as the alpha carbon. An alpha carbon is the carbon directly next to a functional group. Well, this carbon happens to be next to 2. Whether you read it amino, carbon, carboxyl, or flip it, carboxyl, carbon, amino, no matter the direction, this center carbon is the alpha carbon. That is the one we look to because it also has that side chain. Now, because I know you're super excited, for 19 out of 20 of our amino acids, this alpha carbon is a chiral carbon. I know you are super excited to see a chiral carbon again. Remember, chiral carbons are carbons that have 4 different groups surrounding it. Remember our snail, and that the snails are also chiral in nature? I just wanted to bring that back for you all. The only one that's not is glycine, because glycine has 2 hydrogens, so its R group is a hydrogen. Otherwise, all the remaining are chiral carbons. That means there are enantiomers of our amino acids. Remember in carbohydrates that we found our enantiomer by looking at the hydroxyl group on that last chiral carbon, and it'll have D or L. In our amino acids, we look at the amino group for that enantiomer. Nature typically is going to have the L amino acid. We can make the D, we can use the D amino acids, but they are typically not what we're going to find in nature. Therefore, if you go back and kind of look at, if you've seen amino acids before, we always put that amino group first and then move forward towards our carbon group. That's because that's how nature is. That's what we see as well. Every amino acid has the same backbone. That backbone is going to be the nitrogen, or that amine, to our alpha carbon to our carboxylic acid. All right, that is going to be consistent for all 20. It is that R group that gives us the identities to each of the individual amino acids. The R groups also control the properties that we would expect to see from our proteins and our amino acids. Like we do with every functional group we have talked about, we want to look at polarity first because polarity is what's going to tell us how these R groups are going to interact. Our R groups can be non-polar. So here with alanine, alanine has a methyl group on the alpha carbon. That makes it non-polar because it only has carbon hydrogens. Then we have this very large group of polar amino acids. Under the polar, what we are looking for is the presence of an oxygen, a nitrogen, or a sulfur atom present in the R group. Even though the carbon-sulfur bond is nonpolar, sulfur has 2 lone electron pairs. Those 2 lone electron pairs gives sulfur polarity. So when we identify the presence of a heteroatom in the R group, we know they're polar. And then we can determine what interactions is it going to have. An acidic polar group is going to have that carboxylic acid, like aspartic acid or glutamic acid. It's going to have that COOH. A basic group is going to have an amine present, whether that amine is aliphatic or heterocyclic. As long as it's an amine, it can have those basic properties. With these two, this is going to create those ionic interactions. Whoop, gonna run out of room. These are going to make those ionic interactions so they have a really much stronger attraction to each other. You might see this as an ionic bridge, electrostatic attraction, but it's all because ions are formed. Essentially, they neutralize each other and create those ions. Lastly, we can have neutral polar groups. Our neutral polar groups can be amides, because amides have been neutralized by the amino group and the carboxylic acid group that came together. These can have our sulfur. These are called thiols. Or it can have our alcohols, our OH. So these are all polar groups. They have polar atoms, but they do not have the acid-base properties.